My name is Lynn Dluski. I'm doing my project based on students' cultural background and does engaging the students in their cultural background with lessons that reflect them help with the engagement of learning. So, this subject became important to me when I took the multicultural class for my degree here, just like everybody will, I'm sure. Um, and so it really got me thinking about what could I do to engage my students' culture in our learning. I teach at a school in Fort Worth, Texas that is 98% Hispanic. A lot of my students come from a background where their parents or grandparents are from Mexico. We have dual language classes at my school from pre-K to fifth grade, where students actually learn to read and write in Spanish and English. I've really learned through the course of this class how important that is and how their English reading and writing is going to benefit from them also knowing how to read and write in Spanish instead of just speak it. They get the benefit of learning about uh, reading through both languages, and the comprehension pieces would be similar in both language, thinking about character and plot and setting. So I really set out to find out, what are some of the differences in our cultures? What are some ways that I could help engage students? And so sometimes I have a limited Spanish background, but sometimes I do try to read to them in Spanish and they help me. I've decided to go on YouTube and find picture books read in Spanish, and the students can help me translate them. Those are, just a couple of little ways that I've thought of through this course. Um, what I really want to talk about is how these students might not always see people with their background on TV or in books. And it's important to show them that, they can be or do anything they want. One of the things I watched for my research was America Ferrera from Ugly Betty fame's TED Talk. And she was talking about how she had difficulty getting cast in roles at first because they were asking her to be more Latina, speak in broken English, things like that on auditions at first. Then other times they would tell her, oh, we already have an ethnic person for this role. We don't need another one. So she really learned how much her background affected her getting jobs. Um, and so I started thinking about how that relates to my students and how I can use that to help engage in classroom activities. I will say at first I was a teacher who was definitely just kind of thought about different cultural things at Christmas when we did Christmas around the world. But now I'm trying to find ways to engage them in things that they can relate to daily in the classroom. One thing I read in my research was that Americans are more of a me, more centralized on just self. So calling on students to answer one-on-one is something more expected. But the Spanish culture is more of a group culture. So one of the things I've done is to allow my students to talk to each other before answering a specific question that I ask. This way they have that time to talk and work as a group and then come back to me to answer the question. Also, engaging them in speaking activities is very important, and I also think it's engaging. It gives them a chance to stop and think and then come back to me. So my whole purpose is to try to engage students more through thinking about their interactions. As the dyslexia teacher, it looks a little bit different. In my classroom, I have groups of 4 to 7 students at a time in the room, and I do a lot of teaching of phonics and decoding because that's what my students with dyslexia need. But I do take a lot of time to read books, and I have been bringing in books that are more related to my students' background and thinking about what they need, asking them. Every Monday, I ask, "How was your weekend?" And we spend just 5 minutes talking about that. And if I forget on Monday, I have students asking me, "Hey, wait, miss, we didn't talk about our weekend." Um, Another thing that I've really learned from this class is how important it is to engage with parents. I would say before, I probably hesitated to engage with them and really communicate as much as I should be as the dyslexia teacher because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to speak to them. So I've come up with different things I can do. I've asked their classroom teachers who teach dual language if they would mind translating for me. I've reached out and made a PLC with other dyslexia teachers, and some of them speak Spanish, so I've asked if they would help me with the dyslexia translations. I started sending home a newsletter that was not just in English, but in Spanish and English. And I didn't hesitate to call the parents anymore. And sometimes my students will help me translate. And I've really realized through the videos in this course that that is a really great activity for them to be able to think on their feet and translate and talk to me, talk to their parents. And I'm hoping to add that in with like some of the Spanish picture books that we're going to be doing. Um, so my whole goal as a teacher is to make sure I'm engaging students, getting their attention, having them enjoy my class, and feeling like they've learned to love reading. And so I'm hoping with adding more books, I found a really great chapter book called Red Glass that was about a little girl who helps, her family helps people who are just now entering the country from Mexico. We're going to be reading that as a book study with my 5th graders. It's a little mature, but I think that they can handle it. So just things like that, finding ways to engage them and teach them about their cultural background and let them know that I'm interested and I care as well.